Hello, my name is Christopher Mancha, and I will be conducting a brief educational piece on asthma for those who know the most, which is high schoolers, of course. And I know that you may not have asthma, so I'm here to tell you that you are not immune from developing asthma later on in life because asthma can be developed later on in life. And in 2010, there was an estimated 25 million individuals with asthma, so the likelihood of you knowing somebody with asthma is relatively high. So without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce asthma as a disease characterized by airflow obstruction. In asthmatics, there is a special inflammatory response that occurs in their airways, which lead to narrowing of the airways and thus the reduced oxygen flow to the body. Asthmatics are more responsive than non-asthmatics to triggers. Exposure to these triggers leads in the reduced airflow to the body, characterized by shortness of breath and wheezing. In this presentation, we will be having several learner outcomes, which means you will be learning the causes of asthma along with some risk factors, the treatment involved in asthma, the effectiveness or how to monitor the effectiveness of treatment for asthma, prevention of asthma, and some lifestyle changes. There are two main causes of asthma. The first one is genetic predisposition, which means that you are pretty much born with asthma due to your genes. The second is environmental factors such as air pollutants or allergens. You can also develop asthma from viral infections. Obesity has been identified as a risk factor for asthma. And just a quick fun fact, the overuse of Tylenol in childhood has been linked to the development of asthma. On to the treatment of asthma. One of the main treatments of asthma is through a bronchodilator. A bronchodilator is a substance that dilates or opens up the airways. Albuterol is the classic bronchodilator. In this case, which is also referred to as the rescue inhaler, and it is the inhaler that we see in mainstream media being used when an individual is unable to breathe. The second is an inhaled glucocorticoid, which over time reduces that inflammatory response that occurs in the body, which leads to the airflow obstruction. I like to go ahead and just emphasize here that this is not a rescue inhaler and is not intended to be used as a rescue inhaler. As I mentioned, this works over time in the body to prevent that inflammatory response from occurring. Now, prevention. You cannot really prevent asthma. Once you have asthma, there are some things you can do to go ahead and manage your asthma. One of the first things you can go ahead and do is know your triggers and minimize contact with that triggers. That involves asking yourself questions such as, was my asthma triggered by being around dust? Was it triggered by being around pets? Was I exposed to cold air? Was I running outside in the wind? Was I running period? Asking yourself questions after having your asthma triggered can be key in identifying your triggers and what to avoid. Taking your medications as prescribed is going to be key in managing asthma. Of course, you don't want to not listen to the doctor and take your inhaled glucocorticoid when you feel that you are developing an asthma exacerbation. You want to go ahead and listen to your doctor and follow the instructions of the prescriptions. Tracking your asthma and recognizing early signs of asthma and when it's getting worse. Asthmatic episodes almost never occur without the warning. Some warnings you may experience are you might start to feel a little bit anxious, your chest might start to feel tight. Of course, you will recognize and identify right away that you are not able to take in as much oxygen as you can. So knowing these early signs can help you stop asthmatic episodes in their tracks. Another thing you can do is know when your asthma is getting worse. Once your asthma, you feel that your asthma is getting worse and you are using your rescue inhaler more than indicated, this will be a time to go ahead and schedule an appointment with your primary care provider. Some lifestyle changes you are going to have to make when you have asthma or when you know somebody with asthma. These lifestyle changes are what you can recommend. And the first one is always know and have access to your rescue inhaler. This is going to be extremely important because you are not going to want to go ahead and stop your life because of asthma. However, you are going to take the appropriate measures to be prepared. When you have an asthmatic episode, you want to know where your inhaler is and how accessible is to it. With that said, you also want to know where your spare inhaler is and the access to that, because if you lose your primary inhaler, you're going to fall back on your secondary inhaler. Now if you don't have a secondary inhaler, you're going to be out of luck, and now you're going to have to go ahead and make a trip to the emergency department. You're going to want to be able to know how to track your puffs on your inhaler. The last thing you want to do is use your inhaler and realize that you don't have any more puffs for the rest of the day. You want to go ahead and know your triggers and how to avoid them. As I mentioned, you're not going to want to go ahead and stop your life just because you have asthma. I'm encouraging you to go ahead and have an active, healthy lifestyle. You just want to go ahead and know your triggers. So if it's a windy day outside and you love to run, you know that the dust and the wind is a trigger. You may not want to run on that day. Instead, you may want to go ahead and visit a gym to run inside. And communication. Communication is going to be key with asthma. As I mentioned, there was an estimated 25 million individuals who had asthma in 2010. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. As a matter of fact, communicating with other individuals that you have asthma can save your life. And you want to go ahead and get your routine vaccinations. As I mentioned, viral infections can cause or flare up your asthma, so you want to go ahead and get your vaccinations. Thank you very much.